But now I'd like to invite our group from SBR1 to come up. They have quite an ambitious title for their talk. They're telling us that they're going to save the world one step at a time. So please can I ask Carl, Richard, Gary, Ian, Kath and Neris from Carmarthen and Swansea to come and join me. Thank you very much, guys.
And I'm starting a clock here for you guys to know, because the shepherd's hook came out once earlier, didn't it, when the 15 minutes was up. So hopefully there's quite a few of us, so hopefully we're going to divide it equally to be able to stay within that 15 minutes. Good to follow Aled. I think some of the things that he started talking about there certainly are built within our, not just presentation, but what we've been through as a CEIC cohort, and where we're setting our ambitions really to go forward from this point in time. So ambitious title, as you mentioned, but really this isn't necessarily us coming up saying we are going to save the world. You know, it's really a bit of a plea to the people in this room and beyond, because I think what we've got to understand is nobody's going to save the world for us. We know that there's a risk, we know that there's an imbalance, which was mentioned earlier, and if we keep going in this direction, we haven't got a particularly optimistic future to look at. So really, it's more about we all need to do our little bit, and we're going to tell you about the journey that we've been on over the last 18 months, and actually, Gary's going to cover some of the things we were doing before that, but certainly we'll set out where we aim to go from here. Some of it is going to touch on, as Aled mentioned there, your own workforce is a great place to start. So that really forms the basis of one of the parts of the work that we're going to do from this point. So I did mention we've only got 15 minutes and 5 of us, because some of us aren't here today. So my name is Carl Daniels. I'm joined by colleagues Catherine Grimwade, Neris Williams, Gary Price and Richard Stradlin, who are from Carmarthenshire County Council and Swansea Council. So without further ado, I'll step aside and hand over the baton to Kath, who's going to take you through the start of our presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Climate change is altering our planet, causing extreme weather events like tropical storms, wildfires, severe droughts and heat waves, negatively affecting crop production, causing disruption to animal habitats and more. Because the emission of greenhouse gases is the main perpetrator that causes global warming and therefore climate change, it's important to understand how carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions affect the environment. After all, if we don't understand the impact of carbon emissions, then how can we change what we're doing and save the planet? The intuitive link between climate change, carbon emissions and the circular economy is relatively straightforward. If we more effectively make higher quality products, use them for longer and preserve valuable resource within our industrial systems, we will lighten the environmental load and limit the need for unchecked, emission-intensive primary production and the associated impact of shorter material life cycles. At the systems level, the relationship between climate and the circular economy is gaining traction. According to the 2021 Circularity Gap Report, circular economy strategies can cut global greenhouse gas emissions by 39%, keep the planet well below a 2 degrees Celsius trajectory, and increase the proportion of materials that are reused from 8.6% to 17%. Notably, the European Union's Circular Economy Action Plan is an important part of the European Green Deal's roadmap for becoming the first zero-emissions continent by 2050. Yet, as more companies step onto climate change, set science-based targets and jump on the net zero bandwagon, circular economy strategies have been notably absent from most corporate climate roadmaps, despite the intuitive link. Now, we are not experts in climate change, carbon emissions or circular economy. However, we are people who have stepped forward from our respective organisations, Carmarthenshire County Council and Swansea Council, to try to be innovators and influencers to create a better future. Over to you, Rich.
Great, thanks, Kath. So as a group then, we obviously sort of understand, we understand the issue in terms of the global issue. It's up to us now really to try and do something about it. But we realise as a group that we need to engage locally to help facilitate this change. And key to localised engagement, it is important to understand where we are currently, where we need to get to, and the steps between that will enable us and others to achieve our goals. On the screen now is a Welsh public sector route map that outlines a strategic framework for change to achieve net zero carbon status by 2030. At present, we should be at the moving up a gear stage, and for the purposes of our presentation, the first orange column in terms of behaviours fits really well with what we are looking to achieve. In terms of our project, we are at the first step of developing an approach of explaining the issue of climate change and the importance of taking sustainability seriously. So we are very much, like it says on the screen there, at the moving up a gear stage. Also on the screen, which hopefully they will come on. Yeah, there we are. You will see the two images of key documents that have been produced by Carmarthenshire County Council and Swansea Council that outline their respective plans for becoming net zero carbon local authorities by 2030. But I think what needs to be sort of emphasised here is that each of those documents contain a whole range of ideas and plans for how net zero can be achieved. But as documents, but they are of little use if those thoughts, ideas and actions remain within the pages of those documents. They need to be actioned, shared, brought to life, and we need to explore and explain to citizens, and in particular our staff, the goal and the current global crisis, but also to reinforce that they can make a difference and they can play an important part of helping to achieve a net carbon zero status. Everyone has a role to play. This as an issue, in fact, is quite unique in some respects, that everyone, regardless of their role or position within our workforces, can engage with and can make a positive contribution towards what is ultimately a shared goal, not only by our local authorities, but by governments and organisations around the world. With the workforce in mind, how can we start to make that difference at a local authority level? Well, between us, between Carmarthenshire County Council and Swansea Council, we have immediate access to a combined workforce of approximately 450 employees within our specific service areas, but also have the capability to connect and engage with a wider organisational employees, which equates to approximately a combined reach of 20,000 individuals. Through our networks, we have the potential to influence supply chains, dependent organisations and a wider combined public population of circa 436,000 individuals, which is 14% of the Welsh population. We have the networks and contacts to be able to influence and make a change, but key is how we engage and how we convince colleagues, residents and everyone to join us on our journey. The challenge is not an easy one, but ultimately we need to keep asking the question, how do we get colleagues and others to understand, be enthused and make the necessary habit changes to help, as we said at the start, save our world. So that's my part of the presentation. So I'll now hand you over to Nerys for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So carbon emissions, carbon consumption is not something that we can necessarily see. We can't touch it. How do we get people to understand it and engage with us and get our staff on board to make their changes as we go forward? Now you can see from our big bomb or big balloon, whichever you choose to think it is up on the screen, that equates to 1 tonne of carbon emissions. That balloon is actually 10 metres wide. In Swansea and Carmarthen, we've worked it out that individuals actually output 5 tonne of carbon emissions a year. So it's 5 of those balloons per person. If you looked at Swansea, Carmarthenshire, not just as local authorities, but as the whole area, we've got a population of roughly 436,000 people. Now, I don't know whether anybody in the room is really good at maths and can tell me how many tonnes that actually equates to, but it's 2.2 million tonnes of carbon emissions per year. That's a massive amount. That's a lot of black spheres of carbon emissions. An interesting, but also, personally, I think a rather alarming fact was in 2019, the UK's highest emitting power station was Pembroke Dock, and they actually pumped out 4.7 million climate warming gases into our local area. That is so alarming. That's double the amount that we actually produced for 2 local authorities. So definitely food for thought and definitely time to make changes to lower our carbon emissions.
Hi, Gary Price, Operations Manager in the Sport and Leisure Department of Carmarthenshire County Council. My part of the next slide, please, is very much the past, the present and the future. The past, fair to say, very much a fragmented approach to the circular economy, largely focused on building-related energy schemes through schemes such as CEIC and Refit Company, a few may be aware of, purely focusing on the buildings, lighting, heating, pool plant, pool covers, and solar panels fitted to some of our facilities. A recent £1.1 million investment in our facilities, with projected payback over six and a half years, purely based on utility charges. Additional smaller projects we've been involved in the past, water saving projects, reduction in general waste, moving more towards recycling. We're planning for phase 2 of Refit Company, which again promising to give us a further £1.5 million in savings, again against energy. I lead a cross-section of a team in Sport and Leisure. Sport and Leisure, we've, the last 2 years, the ROSPA Gold accreditation, but very much health and safety on the agenda, where sustainability is very much the latter point. And again, sort of, as we all know, over the last couple of years, COVID being sort of, for the health and safety team, very much sort of topical, but again, sustainability element taking a back foot. Key to the success of the health and safety team has been, for me, they understand and believe in the purpose. They believe in what we're trying to do. It's trying to get that to the wider workforce will be our challenge. The present, obviously, we've gone through, like many of you, on the K course. The course, obviously, many interesting webinars, some excellent stuff again today. We had sort of a webinar with Simon Wright on local food on the plate, Welsh Waters Ideas Portal, which we found using obviously the tools that we've gone through on the course. Bluestone Resort, which is down the road from ourselves, okay? Again, excellent practice in place. Recently invited us down there to visit, to share some of their projects. Our aim, okay, in part of our statement, is our aim being to educate, support and influence our workforce to integrate sustainable actions into their everyday routines to reduce our collective environmental impact. And now to the future, I'll pass across to Carl.
When it's that point in time when you come back up, see the phone and see how much time has passed. I won't say, but we've still got some time. Yeah, thanks all. That obviously brings us up to the future and what are we going to do about it from this point forward. So I think Aled referred to, as we do, the low-hanging fruit. So we are, if we're to look at the slide of how you can bring about influence and change, you know, some of you may have seen this model, but ultimately we, and I would say you, are innovators. You're some of the first to stick your foot forward and say, do you know what, I'm going to be part of that movement. And it's tough because sometimes you're talking a language, you're talking about words, you're talking about research, you're struggling to find the things yourself that will support the cause. But ultimately, somebody's got to step forward first and say, well, let's start trying to move that snowball. Let's start trying to build it up. One of the key decisions that we've made, and it was interesting to see the Copper Foundation list of actions there, and we would love to have a clear list of actions that we will do as at least 2 local authorities. And it was very tempting, and Tony was holding us back on the course because we were trying to find the solution sometimes. But ultimately, if we in the room all think that we're the ones to find the solutions, we're only going to get so far. And like Richard's slide earlier, we had 2 policies coming up, and I bet my bottom dollar, not that I've got dollars, but I bet my bottom dollar that they were very CMT corporate team driven. And you wonder the extent to which they've really reached out to the population and the workforce to say, what do you think we should do? And also in the delivery of it, who are the deliverers, and are the people galvanised, or is it, you know, a corporate team reaching out to some and putting together this document that will drive the organisations towards those goals? Our approach is taking it a little bit differently. We have obviously got, as Gary mentioned, we've got some clear things that we could put on a piece of paper now and say we're committing to do that. So there's obviously things like reduced travel of the workforce, there's reducing pool chemicals in the pool, there's reduced energy consumption, there's new ways of reducing water in the toilets. Obviously there's a mixed gender room here, but the males in the room will know we have those urinals, and there are options around reducing water, and sometimes you just don't take those options, but we're down that route. So there's lots of things we know we'll do, but we want to stop there in terms of us coming up with that list. And the biggest thing that we can do to make the biggest difference, we believe, is to push on up that graph. And let's reach out and get those early innovators. So creating a unified way to work, at least across our teams, as was mentioned, we've got 450. Well, how many of those are the low-hanging fruit? How many of those can we grab now to join the cause? So what we've set about doing is to recruit a team of those prepared, the low-hanging fruit, to say, do you know what, I'm up for that. You don't have to convince me, I'm there. As green champions, and this is the critical thing. So those green champions, I'm wondering, is this the shepherd's hook? No. Those green champions are going to join the cause. And if we can get a proportion of the 450 workforce that we've got control over, I don't mean control, but you know what I mean, they're within our immediate teams, then we believe we can start moving our way up that graph. So here's them displaying the key statement, I guess, that is our pledge. There's some of them saying things about what we're actually undertaking and what they're actually committing to as well. I'm hoping the volume will come through.
Hi, I'm Elliot from the catering team and a green champion, and we are on a mission to reduce single-use plastics and all disposables.
I am Emmy Richards from Outdoor Recreation Service and a green champion. We create wild gardens and develop forestry as part of our biodiversity programme.
I'm Inhara from Active's Leisure Centres and a green champion, and we focus on recycling. 70% of our waste is now recycled compared to 40% previously, also saving us £11,000 a year.
Hi there, I'm Rian, part of theatres. We are part of cultural services. Within the furnace, we've got solar panels on our roof, and we have a rainwater harvesting system which uses recycled rainwater to use within our toilets.
I'm Sophie from Active Sport and Leisure, and we're giving greater value to circular economy and sustainability in our procurement of goods and services.
And that is the last one. And ultimately our aim is not to create a culture, a climate change cult, which is the risk that we face, is to create this mass movement towards a better world. And ultimately, hopefully, we can all save the world, as was the title at the start. Thank you very much.